What makes you stay in Denmark?
So learning the language is more than just going to a language school twice a week. I worked as a football coach. Sometimes people say it's hard to make friends with Danes. You've probably heard that before.
Yeah.
You know, it's impossible. You got to be where they are, right? So if you're only hanging around with expats,
what is the challenge that you face since moving from UK?
You shouldn't try and convince anybody else of your value in terms of taking a job from somebody, because those are the people we don't need to try and convince those people. As a minority, you know, chances can sometimes be harder to come by. So we have to maybe work even harder.
If you have to give me one piece of advice, what not to do when dating, what would that be?
Not to do. I would say stay away from these YouTube gurus and that sort of thing. I would keep away from them. I would say just be yourself.
Have you ever felt like, okay, you know what, if I speak this wrongly, my credibility is at stake? Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, of course.
How do you overcome that?
You make mistakes, but I think one thing is, I think people know I'm not a native speaker. I do what I can, no matter how good you are at a language, whether it's English, Danish, Chinese, Mandarin, whatever. It's important not to, and I've used this also, again, overthink too much. This is why children are really good at picking up languages as well, because they're not afraid to make mistakes. Exactly. You know, you make a mistake, as long as it's, you know, understandable, comprehensible.
Realized if someone tells about their perspective, it's never wrong. Your perception of something is yours and you own it, and that is the single source of truth that you bring in. Nobody can fucking challenge that.
Agree.
Okay. Shaun, thank you so much for being part of my show. It's a pleasure to have you. Before we get into the much awaited topics that I have, I would like to know more about you. When did you move to Denmark? Why did you move to Denmark? And how did you move to Denmark?
Okay, thanks for having me, first and foremost. When I moved to Denmark originally was in 2015. Why? That was because of studies, education. So I studied part of my bachelor degree here at Aarhus University. Stayed on afterwards, studied a master's degree at Aalborg. And then the reason I how I got here, as I mentioned during the Erasmus exchange program, reason why I stayed is to complete my education. I had a really good internship at the UN, which kind of kept me here as well. And then after that, got into professional life, started working full time, and then kind of accelerated and developed my career here as well. So,
what was your field of work when you took the education in Aarhus and Aalborg?
Yeah, so my bachelor degree is in linguistics. I was really big on languages, learning languages, the history behind it. In terms of my master's degree, it's a little bit different. I studied international relations and European studies. So a little bit more, politics focused, and that kind of led me to the UN. So I got a better understanding there. But I've always kind of worked in the background with communication, and that's currently what I'm working with full time right now at the moment. And that's a lot of my experience has also been full time working with, communications.
Okay, and when you say communication, is it about a particular language, like for example Danish, or is it like different communication?
So it's completely different. So I've had different experience with comms. My first full-time job was in pharma industry.
Pharma?
Pharma.
Okay.
So I was there doing a bit of marketing, a lot of B2B, B2C, copywriting, that sort of thing. And then I've done corporate communications, internal communications. Now I'm kind of, again, primarily working with intern communications as well, primarily in English.
And so you said 2015, so it's like almost more than 10 years now. The way I met you was through BIPOC. So the one thing that connects us is BIPOC. And it was, I think, less than a year ago when I first participated in one of the events that BIPOC hosted. And I saw you and also like people like us, topics like men's well-being. There's also a lot of topics that internationals need. So that is how I know you. But Shaun, being a communication strategist or your field, what is Shaun outside work? Who is Shaun outside work?
Shaun outside of work is very restless. Restless, always doing something. I have a big sports background, so I played a lot of football, done a lot of running before going to university. So outside of work, you probably find me outside Rain, snow, sun. I'm always outdoors doing some kind of physical activity. So I'm also an ambassador for Essex, the running shoe or running brand.
Okay.
I've been an ambassador for the last 3.5 years.
Okay.
So again, always trying to promote a healthy lifestyle.
Okay.
Get outdoors, get fresh air, just kind of be away from the computer when I'm not at work. But generally, just like any other young person, I consider myself fairly young still, with friends, try and be sociable, just the normal stuff. Yeah.
How did BIPOC happen to you? Why did you want to be part of such an organization?
Yes, BIPOC is a really important organization. And the reason I found it is because I had somebody I worked with in my current role. She's no longer at the same company, but she informed me about the network and Joseph, who's the president, about BIPOC, what do they kind of do. And I thought, okay, this is something that I need to be a part of. I'm a minority in Denmark.
So do I.
Yeah, exactly. So having lived, in Denmark for 10 years or so, up until the last year or so, I never heard of a kind of organization that was catered for people like myself. Nowadays, there's a big focus on diversity. There's a big focus on certain areas of diversity. But I think particularly for men of color, I think it's really important that we kind of connect. We try and empower each other, uplift each other, and also build a network as well. And I think that's why BIPOC is especially important to me. And I think it's what's brought a lot of people, us included, together.
If I have to ask you a question about, let's say, organizations in Denmark, apart from BIPOC, which are the organizations you feel proud about or actively involved in? Any other organization?
There's, I think it's unfair to name specific, but I know there's a lot of good ones. I know ProWalk, for example. And we at BIPOC, we take a lot of inspiration from them as well. But there's several organisations that are doing great work. And I think, as BIPOC, we've taken a lot of inspiration from them and what they've done. Even internally at the current job where I'm at Danske Bank, they have a lot of different initiatives, different schemes, different organisations within the bank that promote diversity and inclusion. I think, again, we take a lot of inspiration from them as well.
So now you are, you said you're active and you're also engaged in PR and strategies and also actively in the country. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? And will you be staying in Denmark, or what do you look up to?
Yeah, so I love that question because you never quite know the answer. The plan is to stay in Denmark. So I've been here for 10 years or so. I've studied my master's degree, part of my bachelor's degree, worked 3 full-time jobs here, built a network and life, and also applied for citizenship in the final stages of obtaining that. So I think it would be a shame to then leave after that. But I think the plan is to stay, build on my career. I've got a job that I'm really satisfied with, a good company as well. I think the immediate plan is to just continue building my experience, continue building my network, and seeing where it takes me. Being proactive in the different organisations such as BIPOC, and just I think the long-term plan and the short-term plan is to stay here in Denmark.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because I've seen a lot of articles and research papers and data that says a lot of internationals find challenging to live in Denmark, especially because either they come with family and they find it difficult to have a job opportunity for spouses, or challenges with integrating their children who are in the teenagers. Also learning the language. There are multiple reasons why people from especially non-European countries find difficulties to stay. So the retention of internationals in Denmark is actually declining year by year. And the reason why I put you, even though you're part of European context, what makes you stay in Denmark? What motivates you to stay in Denmark? If there is something that you think is this is the thing that I wanted to live in Denmark.
First things first, I can definitely recognise that there's having worked for BIPOC as well, that there's it's difficult for a lot of people that move over from different countries to stay in and see themselves a part of the society. What I've done that worked for me is try and integrate myself as much as possible.
And how?
And the first things first, I think it goes without saying, you have to learn the language. You know, I'm not going to be here and preach to anybody, but I think, you know, if you're going to be in a country for some years, I think it makes sense, even for your own sake, not for anybody else's sake, to learn the language. And I'll develop on that point. So learning the language is more than just going to a language school twice a week. You know, some of the things I had done, you know, part-time, I worked, as I said, I had background in football. So I worked as a football coach with young kids. Young kids are traditionally not the best at second languages. So that was an easy win to learn Danish, you know. Went in there based on my limited, you know, language, spoke with them in Danish, and then kind of developed it in that point. And then also I just tried to be proactive in, you know, the society as well. So you get a lot of expat clubs, expat groups, and they're good. I think it's good to hang around with, you know, expats, but I think it's important to try and immerse yourself in with the locals as well. You know, sometimes people say it's hard to make friends with Danes. You've probably heard that before.
Yeah.
You know, it's impossible. You got to be where they are, right? So if you're only hanging around with expats, then it's going to be difficult, because when the expats eventually go home, or you're on your own. So I was a coach, started playing sports as well here, didn't join an expat football club. I joined, you know, one with locals. That was easy for me. Running club, and it doesn't have to be physical sports. It could be something else. It could be painting. It could be, I don't know, a knitting club, whatever it is. But I think it's important to try and be where people are. And this is the same for every country. I'm sure if you move to the UK and you come from another country and you're only, you know, you're not where the locals are, then it's going to be difficult to find yourself as a part of that society. And this ain't to preach to anybody, but I think it's one thing that works for me, and one thing I'd recommend is that people try and immerse themselves as much as they can in the society. But of course, you know, stay true to yourself. You know,
but it's a good point that you mentioned about sport, because when I involve myself in activities outside work, I actively participate in Toastmasters. And in Toastmasters, you only see internationals. And of course, I have a good network of internationals and have good friends for life, I would call them, like a family. But I often struggle with Danish groups. So one of the reasons is I don't have something in common, especially like I used to play badminton. And the team that I used to play with is all internationals. And I saw one of my Iranian friend. He also had a similar background like you. He came for education, and then he sort of has a lot of Danish friends. I said, dude, I don't think there's a huge difference between you and me, but why there is a huge divide between you and me in terms of integrating with the locals or at the same age group people? And he said something exactly what you said. He used to play football, and he used to play football with a lot of people, and there is no one. It's only one language. You speak football as a language, and you just you don't need language to actually play football. In fact, you yell, it's raw, and then it's also a lot of action, and a sport could actually, you know, kind of bring that emotional connect more than anything, right? Which I heavily wanted to do at some point, but I often struggle with should I do a sport just to make friends, or what is the balance? And I'm trying to figure out myself.
But then it makes sense. But when you say find friends, I mean, you generally find friends through common interests, right?
Oh.
So I think, you know, finding friends is a byproduct of doing something you enjoy. So you shouldn't do sports if you don't want to do sports. You don't want to play football, don't play football. But you should do something outside of work which brings you joy. And when you do that thing outside of work, I would recommend that, you know, while it's good to hang around with, you know, the internationals, you still should try and assimilate and try and, you know, work with the locals as well. So if you can try and find that balance, that would be good.
And I think I'm also on the same track, like you mentioned. I realized there's a lot of my own employees in my company who play badminton during the weekdays. So what we decided is we just have like a Bane reserved in Danish. Bane is in Danish, sorry. Court is reserved, and then now I'm talking Danish to you.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good.
Sometimes there's you know, the language. You know, I feel like when I go to station, it says station. And then
it's globalization, right? So we have a guy from India talking Danish to a guy from the UK.
So that is working out, and also parties. In my company, we have a lot of parties. Summer party, Christmas party, and then in that I also get to know the flavor of what Danes are and how their music is, and we also have a young professional network. And in that, but do you have such a thing in your organization? Or
there's plenty of stuff, and I must admit that I've not taken advantage of all the different organizations and schemes that they have, but I know there's definitely young professionals. There's definitely I've seen there's knitting clubs. I know there's a running club. All sorts of things. Friday bars. I think most of the large or even small and medium-sized organizations have something. And I don't need to over-explain. It's the easy way to meet people is by joining these things, joining these different events. Yeah.
I absolutely never thought nor imagined getting to this place of inviting guests to my home for a podcast. And here I am. It's a dream where I feel like I'm just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please join by hitting that subscribe button. Here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I will do everything in my power to make this show as valuable as possible. Thank you so much. Back to the episode. We talked about a lot of good stuff. Let's talk about something that is really challenging that a lot of audiences have. One is finding friends, and I think we addressed that issue. And I think the audiences will have some takeaway on what they could do. The other thing is about the unspoken things that people don't normally want to share. For example, there are some opinions and facts, or not even a fact. It's an opinion about, he is an international, he's taking my job away. And he is talented, but I don't think there is a divide in terms of internationals taking local jobs. I've seen this comment in a lot of public forums in Facebook groups telling, we don't need internationals, we are good with our own resources. I don't quite agree with it, because if you look at the statistics in Denmark, there is a shortage of labor. And there is a lot of key sectors like nursing, for example, healthcare for sure, and then IT. And you come from communication background, like a lot of diplomats. So, what is the challenge that you face since moving from UK that you think is you don't know how to figure out, or do you have anything such a challenge?
I mean, the first, you mentioned some really good things, good points as well. Really some good points. So the first thing is you shouldn't try and convince anybody else of your value in terms of taking a job from somebody, because those are the people we don't need to try and convince those people. As a minority, that chances can sometimes be harder to come by. So we have to maybe work even harder to get opportunities than maybe natives. I don't think there's many instances where well-educated internationals are being hired in front of well-educated natives, and this goes for many different countries. There are different challenges. We don't need to raise them, but I think first and foremost we don't need to over-explain our worth. We need to work hard, trying to bring value, and search out any opportunities there are.
When you compare life in UK versus life in Denmark, being a teenager in UK, being an adult in Denmark, and having a job, where do you see Denmark excels, and where do you see Denmark has to do more?
I think Denmark's really good at having a really good work-life balance. You've probably seen it as well in your organization. You can very flexible. Come in, people are generally off the clock by 4 p.m, maybe 3:30 sometimes. There's not that kind of, I'd say, old school mentality that can be found in a lot of organizations in the UK. So I think that's good. In terms of where Denmark can improve, now it's not me to sit on my high horse, having been here for 10 years, and say, Denmark should be doing better at this and this and this. I would also say that, it'd be good if more internationals could get opportunities in certain companies. I know a lot of talented, well-educated internationals that sometimes find it hard to come by to get an interview, get a phone call, even a reply on LinkedIn, for example. So I think maybe looking past maybe stereotypes would be good, and just being open to giving more people into opportunities, should I say. Yeah.
Last in the segment, I like to talk about, especially we are both in the same age groups. I always wanted to ask this question to a youth in Denmark, and I think you are the right candidate for that. Dating in Denmark. You see, DID. Oh, I'm just joking. I always, not say struggle, but I come with a preconceived notion about dates, having dates. And my background, I've been raised in India. I just came for work. I don't know the European mindset, I would call. So, have you ever struggled finding a partner or dating in Denmark, or what is your opinion about dating here? It's a bit off topic.
And you know,
putting in the spotlight now.
I didn't know you was going to ask this. So that's a good one.
You can regret to. You can refrain from this.
It's good. We can. I wouldn't say I've struggled.
Okay.
But you know, I try not to overthink. You attract what you attract, is what I would say. So, you know, if you breed confidence, you're more likely to maybe have success in dating. And I'm not a dating coach by no means, so please don't take this as gospel. But I would say, you know, what I try and do is I take pride in myself. I try and take pride in my appearance. You know, I lead a healthy lifestyle. I would say I'm fairly okay educated. I'm employed. So even there, I'm kind of okay on the scale, if you would rate me in that sense. In terms of finding someone, I let the rest take care of itself. As long as I do what I can, as I said, look after myself, try and keep myself groomed, shower twice a day, you know.
Hygiene.
Then I think it's okay. Yeah, that's all I can say. So,
if you have to give me one piece of advice, what not to do when dating, what would that be?
What not to do? I would say stay away from these YouTube gurus and that sort of thing. I would keep away from them. I would say just be yourself. And this goes for any aspect of life. You know, if you're yourself, then you know you'll find the right person. I would say. Otherwise, you'll get found out. So be yourself. Stay true to yourself. Don't compromise your values. And again, do what you can. Build your own self, appearance. Just work on yourself, and you'll find somebody. So I wouldn't overthink it too much.
One last thing before we end this conversation, it is for the audiences listening to this podcast. They are mostly from non-European countries. If you could give one piece of advice for people who are moving from a non-European country, what would that be, and why is that important?
Moving from non-European country to Denmark, for example.
For example, Bangladesh, India, China, Pakistan, mostly like Asian, like, or maybe it could also be a Brazilian or Mexican. Yeah.
Do your research. I would say it's good to have an understanding of where you'd be moving to, or what the culture of that country is like. Try and adapt. Again, don't lose your core values. If you're from India, you're an Indian, and that's okay. But when you come to Denmark, try and learn the language if you can. And again, work hard, do your thing, don't overthink, and you'll be okay. There's always going to be people that have issues with, people moving over. So don't worry about those people. Do what you can, work hard, try and learn the language, enjoy yourself, and you'll be okay.
And I actually heard you say learning the language, and I think that is a hidden message, or actually a very important message, because if you want to stay in a country, I think language is undoubtedly important. And I've listened to you, the entire conversation, you mentioned it quite some time, and but that is very important, like you mentioned.
Even just for independence, right? So when I moved to Denmark, I was 21. And just for your own independence, you get a letter in your e-box, you won't be able to understand what's being said. You're out with your colleagues, and you don't want to be that guy or that girl where people have to translate, or just 1 second, you don't want to be in that situation. It's just for your own self-esteem, self-worth, that you can contribute and just, have it as easy as possible. So I would say, not for anybody else's sake, just for your own sake.
Just out of curiosity, how many Danes work with you in your company compared to internationals? It's like a ratio.
That's a good question.
50-50, 60-40?
I'm reluctant to say the number because I don't know, but I would say there's a lot of internationals.
Okay. And
with that being said, there's also a lot of Danes. I would maybe 70% Danes. If I had
and
to
the
guess.
corporate language is English.
Always.
But now the challenge is then you have to double make your effort double, like twice to kind of learn the language, right?
The corporate language is, English, of course, but then what you hear maybe in the corridor. So if you're speaking with your manager, it might be in Danish, for example. And it just helps. It gives that extra connection. If you have it's one more thing you have in common, right? Okay, this person's made an extra effort, to learn the language. And again, it shouldn't just be language, but it's an easy win, and it's something that can easily help bridge the gap.
When you said about learning language and trying to practice it off, have you ever felt like, okay, you know what, if I speak this wrongly, my credibility is at stake? Have you ever felt like that?
Yeah, of course.
How do you overcome that? Because you are representing in a job where your communication is the key here, and maybe your internal communication could be in Danish or English, I don't know, but then everything that you communicate matters to the company, and you're representing the organization. How does it play?
Yeah, I mean, you make mistakes, but I think one thing is, I think people know I'm not a native speaker. I do what I can. Probably won't ever be seen as a native, no matter how good you are at a language, whether it's English, Danish, Chinese, Mandarin, whatever. I think it's important not to, and I've used this also, again, overthink too much. This is why children are really good at picking up languages as well, because they're not afraid to make mistakes.
Exactly.
You make a mistake, as long as it's understandable, comprehensible, I think it will come a long way. I've seen Danes, for example, make a lot of grammatical
I know.
errors when they speak in English, but they, I don't correct them. You probably don't correct them. It is what it is. You understand what's being said.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
As long as you understand the context.
Exactly.
I think it's okay to.
Exactly.
And also the confidence.
Exactly.
And I'm willing to fail and try. Cool. I think it was a lot of information for me, and nice to hear your perspectives about your life in Denmark and your journey so far. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
Thank you so much for having me as well.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to Arun in Denmark podcast. Your support helps me bring more stories and insights to this wonderful international community in Denmark. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more inspiring stories. Until then, take care.